All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about fighting style in protection training. In protection training, when we talk about fighting style, we're talking about how the dog deals with the decoy. And there are three primary styles of fighting for a dog. One would be, let's say, the punch or the push, where the dog digs in deeper to the decoy. The second one would be the opposite to that, which is the actual pull. So the dog is going to pull the decoy down. And then the third is what we call the shake to death, which is a very natural thing for any dog to do. We're going to go through, again, the differences between the three styles of fighting. With the punch, you see that a lot today, especially in PSA, where the dog is on the arm. Usually it's a bite suit. And what will happen is the dog now, he's going to be targeting the bicep area. So he's going to hit. And then from there now, what's going to happen is he's going to actually be taught to dig in deeper. And with that said, what happens is it paints a picture of confidence. Because here we have a dog coming into the decoy frontal, very close up in the decoy's facial area, which requires a lot of confidence. And he's not backing down, he's not getting hectic, but he's nice and smooth with his countering. He's digging into that bicep and with a nice full mouth, which paints a picture for the judge of a lot of confidence. With that said, we may not see as much in the way of hindering behavior. So when we say hindering behavior, where the dog is actively stopping the decoy, especially if he gets into things like fleeing away, the pursuit, or where he's being driven, you may not see that type of behavior. Where you would see that is, let's say, for example, if we taught a dog to actually do the pull. In Schutzhund, you'll find that they tend to go more with the pull, simply because it does show a lot more in the way of hindering behavior. When we say hindering, the word defined means to obstruct or to stop. Judges look for that quality in the dog the day of the trial. So we have the escape exercise where the decoy now, boom, takes off. The dog gives chase. He launches. He grabs the forearm because they are taught to target on a sleeve, not a bite suit, the actual forearm of the sleeve, and to go in with, again, just like the bite suit, a nice full grip, ear to ear, and basically try to stop the decoy as he's running. So he catches the decoy, he starts to run, the decoy that is. The dog, while he's on the arm, ideally we don't want him just hanging there. If that dog gives us this type of behavior, he's going to score very well. And that's what judges are looking for. Another area where in Schutzhund you would see that type of behavior is, let's say, during the actual driving. And we've seen dogs when they're being driven back, sometimes you might see a little bit of that behavior where he's going to drop his weight. Some of the Rotties, you tend to see a little bit more of that behavior. With that said, some of the drawbacks to that, some people will say, well, when the dog pulls, he's showing more in the way of fear or nervousness. And in some cases, it can look like that. We've seen dogs where they hit and they pull and they're very frantic. They're like this, they're hectic. They're trying to get away from the decoy. And it can be attributed to genetics. It can be attributed to training. Sometimes when there's too much pressure put on the dog, he's going to take that grip and he's going to try and get out of dodge. Now, the flip side to that is a dog that just wants to dominate, a dog that just wants to make ownership of the sleeve, or in certain instances, just basically overpower the decoy. And some dogs naturally tend to bring more power with the pull type behavior or countering behavior. The third is the shake to death. So with the shake to death now, what it is, dogs naturally, they're predators. And when they make a kill, whether they catch a raccoon, squirrel, mouse, whatever it may be, first thing they tend to do is this. They shake violently. They try to kill that animal. And so it is what we call an innate behavior, and one that we also use in whether it's Schutzhund, PSA, maybe French ring, because it is quite a natural act. The only drawback to the shake to death behavior is the fact that sometimes when they're shaking, the grip gets a little loose. So instead of seeing that nice full grip, whether it be here or here when they're shaking, you might see a little bit of daylight inside the mouth, between the sleeve, the jacket, and the mouth area. And so this can be the drawback to the shake to death, unless you have a dog that has a very strong grip, whether it's genetics or through training. I mean, that paints a beautiful picture, but like I said, it can be challenging at the same time, because every time they shake, you get a little bit of looseness. Some dogs, like say Rottweilers, they tend to maintain a nice full grip and still be able to shake to death quite comfortably and not lose the quality of grip. And so you'll find many trainers will sometimes stay away from that. They might go either the pull or they might go the push. I myself, with my Roddy, we had tried years ago teaching him, because naturally that's what he did. We tried teaching him to actually pull, and I was competing in Schutzhund at that time. And what had happened was we actually weakened his grip. Why that was? Because he wasn't comfortable fighting like that. So it actually pushed him into a little bit of defense, almost teetering on avoidance. So the grip itself got weak, and you could see that there's a lot of daylight. So eventually, I made that executive decision to go back to what he does naturally. It took about maybe 2.5 months, and before you know it, boom, back to nice, tight, full grip with a lot of power. What we look for in our sport of Schutzhund is we're looking for a lot of power. And like I said, the term is called hindering. This is what judges, they score on. They score not only on the grip, the strike, but also the fight, the power. And this is why we tend to go either with the pull or the actual shake to death. In Schutzhund, even going back in the early days, there were dogs that were actually taught to counter into the sleeve. And that actually helps in the way of, promoting and showing that picture of a nice full grip. And sometimes what happens is you may have a dog that may not bite with a full grip. He might give you 3/4 of a grip. So because of that now, we could actually, let's say, mask that or conceal it through the push. So by teaching your dog to actually push into the sleeve, that's another way in which you can actually create that illusion or picture of a nice full grip. The only drawback to that is we found that we wouldn't get as much in the way of the hindering behavior. And dogs that were taught to actually push in, sometimes in the way of the fight, they would just naturally revert back to the shake to death. So the pushing in is a nice way of concealing the actual deficiency in the grip as well. Now keep in mind, you want to train for your discipline. This is what I teach my guys when I'm coaching them in the sports. Train for your discipline. If we're doing, let's say, a street dog or a police service dog, what we want is a dog that's going to go in there and that's going to bring a lot of power to the fight. And we find the two that best suit that dog is either the shake to death or the pull. Because the reality is he's in the street and he's working against somebody that may be violent, somebody that's not going to cooperate. And we're also talking about officer safety. So it's not the time nor place to really, work on finesse. What we want is just real, intensity, power in the strike, and then, like I say, in the way of basically overcoming the assailant. And that will come through, like I said, either the shake to death or the pulling. We've actually watched, my student trainers and myself, we've watched a few videos, and when I say a few, it was like about 15 police dog videos, apprehensions, to see the chosen method of countering or fighting. And what we found was it was predominantly this type of behavior. And we're talking about, when he got on the guy and there was a little bit of a tussle, or even in some instances the guy was still moving, the dog naturally went into that behavior. Where we saw the dog opt for the pull was when the dog got into a situation where, let's say, one guy was actually hiding in a shed. It was a really small shed, and they sent the canine in, the dog went in, and boom, when he grabbed him, he pulled him out. And so naturally the dog went into defense. He felt a little bit more comfortable bringing him out of that shed into the open area. So that's another benefit to teaching the pull exercise, is simply when the dog gets into a particular circumstance or situation where, let's say the guy is in a shed, he could be hiding under a car, we need to get him out. Ideal for teaching the pull. But in general, we found that, you know, in the way of the digging in, only time, and we probably saw it maybe 2 times, was when the assailant was on the ground and the dog was on him. But even then, the dog opted for the shake. So with that said, like I said, you train for your discipline. If you're doing PSA, they prefer more in the way of the push in. And sometimes it makes a little bit more sense because you're working on a bite suit. It's a little bit more pliable. So it's easier for the dog when he shakes for the dog to sometimes lose that nice full grip. So what we do is we teach the dog to go in a little bit deeper and teach him to maintain that grip. Even if he opts for a little bit of a shake, it will come with the actual, let's say, digging in. So he's gonna dig in, he might shake a bit, dig in, might shake a bit, but he's still gonna maintain that grip. If we're talking about Schutzhund, now we have exercises like the escape. We also have, like PSA, the drive work. And ultimately, our judges, they want to see that hindering behavior. So not only the strike, not only the grip, but the actual stopping of the decoy. So this is where we tend to go with either 2, the shake or the actual pull. So we have to keep that in mind when you're actually working dogs in protection training. Know the differences between those 3 primary types of countering behavior. And like I said, it's not to say that I choose, you know, I say that this one is better than this one. You just have to know your discipline and train for it. I compete in the sport of Schutzhund. More than likely, I'm gonna have my dog either do this or this. Currently, I have a Belgian Malinois. He's a fairly big guy. Unlike my Czech Shepherd, who used to counter like this, Flex, my Malinois, he naturally does it like this. And surprisingly enough, he still maintains a full grip. So will I disturb that? Will I change it? No, because of my sport, I know what they're looking for, so I'm gonna train for that. I hope you liked the video, guys. I hope it was informative. If you found you got a lot out of it, don't forget to give a thumbs up, and please hit that subscribe button on your screen. And until next time, take care.